Okay, hopefully this is a video a lot of you have been waiting for. This is an update on the X26 from Angu. Now, 9 months ago, I posted the full review of this e-bike. Now, since then, I've been riding it through fall, the longest winter we've had in Sweden for a long time, spring, and now it's practically summer. I have completed 3,453 kilometers in 9 months, and that equates to 2,145 miles. I looked it up. This will be a dense video. I have so much to say about this bike, everything from the dual charging to why the foldable feature sucks. So here's everything I've learned about the X26 since riding on it for almost 3,500 kilometers. Let's go. It is a heavy bike which puts additional stress on the tire, but I think it looks really good for how long it's been riding. There is no rust on the frame whatsoever, not even on the forks, which is really impressive considering how salty roads we have in Sweden. The only maintenance I've done, and I really mean it, I've not even put more air into the tires since the first time I inflated them. The only maintenance I've done is put more oil on the chain. You might be wondering what this white cable is for. That's not stock, that's the only repair I've had to do. It was originally on the back end of the seat post, which was a terrible design flaw from Angu because it could now be bombarded by water and sand, and eventually I could not plug in the charger, so I had to snip the wires and connect a different cable to a connector on the outside. The front mudguard is not included, which is unbelievably stupid, as some of the water will hit the frame, but some of the water will also reach your face and eyes, which is very frustrating. The front light is actually pretty good. It can reach very far, but it's not very wide. So I got this from Angu, which is their separate flashlight, but also this one is very direct and not very wide. And when you're trying to dodge mooses and deers during the winter, you kind of want a container like this has been absolutely crucial. It may not look very pretty, but it's been very nice to transport things like groceries or even pretty long items that I've been able to strap on top of the lid. Originally, it came with an extra seat. I yanked that off and replaced it with this almost immediately. Something that's been pretty clear since the start of using this bike is that the shock absorption system is more of a gimmick. These springs are basically impossible to compress, and this one barely moves. However, it's a little counterintuitive what I'm about to say, but this is one of the most comfortable e-bikes I've ever ridden. It's super nice, very comfortable, and the suspension actually feels pretty good nonetheless. But it could be improved. On their website there are a few options for the X26. This is the dual battery version with a 10.4 amp hour battery in the frame and a 19.2 amp hour battery in the seat post. I did a full range test in my first review 9-10 months ago, and I did 121 kilometers on one single charge. And that range has been absolutely incredible to have all through these kilometers. I only charge about once a week, as I've done 3,453 kilometers divided by 9-10 months. That equates to about 12 kilometers every single day for those 9-10 months. Now, that means that I do about 80 kilometers every week, so I only have to charge it once a week, which is incredible. But something Angu doesn't mention at all on their website, and I don't understand why, is that the dual battery version can charge twice as fast as basically any e-bike on the market right now. You see, this is a normal 150 watt charger that you get with the bike, and these are the type of chargers that you typically get with an e-bike of this size. But as we have a charge port for not only the frame battery, but also the main battery, there are 2 charge ports. You can simply buy a separate charger and use 300 watts of charging to, well, simply charge up your batteries faster. The folding feature I haven't used one single time, and that's a good thing. That means that the bike has been so reliable that I've been able to go anywhere I wanted to go with the bike and not having to transport it by car. However, here's why I haven't used the folding feature once. This is going to be pretty awkward. This bike is very heavy and awkward to lift, so whatever you're lifting it into is probably just gonna get damaged. At least that's what I did. I really enjoy the programming of this display. The way you get into it is by holding the top and bottom buttons at the same time, and it will get you into the programming mode. Now, if you go down to personalization and power set, you can very easily adjust the amount of power you want at each power mode in order to match your friend's speed, for example. And that's actually been really useful. The total distance I've taken this bike is 3,453 kilometers. The trip distance is the same. The power, it usually peaks at about 1300 watts uphill. Now, the total time it took for me to go those 3,453 kilometers was 116 hours. The max speed was 55. The average speed was 29.7. Everything else on this bike still works incredibly well. I haven't had to adjust the brakes one single time. I'm quite conservative with using my brakes. I would, however, like to have seen some regenerative braking on this bike. Not so much to get power back into the battery, but in order to save the manual brakes so you don't have to replace them as often. The Shimano 8th gear shifter is still very solid, as the top speed of this bike is about 50 to 55 kilometers an hour. The 8th gear is very well needed, so you're not ghost pedaling so much. The frame is incredibly robust considering its size. There are no weird squeaks, there are no parts that have been compromised, what I can find, and I've never had a single electronic hiccup. Moral of the story is it's been very reliable. Here's just how far 3,400 to 3,500 kilometers is. It's going all across Europe, a good chunk of Australia, and a pretty good distance of going coast to coast in the US. Important note, here's how you can tell this is the latest version of the X26. On the previous older versions, you had a side connector. You had to physically move this big ass cable and connector to the side in order to utilize the frame battery. That's not the case anymore. They talk to each other, they empty out together. Now here's where it gets tricky. I did find a review posted just a month ago and it still had the side connector, but I've been assured by Angu that that's not the case anymore. They don't send out the bikes with side connectors anymore. I've also picked out a few comments from you guys, not just from my previous review, but from other reviews on YouTube as well. And one guy is asking, hey, I'm 6'5" tall, hope that wouldn't be a problem. Now this is a big bike. I'm 5'11", 6 feet, 181 centimeters, and I'm feeling it. It's a big bike, and I wouldn't recommend it to someone much shorter, maybe 175 centimeter. That would probably be the shortest I would recommend. But if you're a big guy, 6'5", I think this bike would be just perfect. Do you happen to hit your knees on the bulging part of the fold mechanism? No, not at all. There's actually quite a lot of space between at least my knees and the bulging part of the fold mechanism. It's no problem. Why do my Angu X26 bike switch from sport mode to standard mode? Now that is the case on my bike as well. You can only be in sport mode for about 10-15 minutes before it swaps back to standard mode. And I suppose that's just to not overheat the battery, the motor, the speed controller. But yes, that's true. You cannot be in sport mode for more than about 10-15 minutes. Now with that being said, in standard mode, you can still do about 44 kilometers an hour. So it's not a big deal to me, but there you go. That's the bad thing about it being so heavy. If it breaks down, if you run out of battery, it's not easy to take home. Well, yeah, that is true. I think one of the things I've tried to explain in this video is, well, how reliable it's been. And like I mentioned, it hasn't broken down a single time, and I've really been able to go wherever I wanted every single time, thanks to the massive battery capacity. So I guess that's the answer for that question. Okay, thank you very much for watching the review. I hope you got some good information from it. Give a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. And I'll also link this bike in the description below. It will be an affiliate link, which means I get some commission if you decide to buy the bike. So thank you very much for using that link. Okay, see you again soon. Bye. It's gonna be a long way to the camera.